What Marine Corps for you?
There's an old job.
Join a better Marine Corps.
I think so. Just wait.
I'm just sitting here with all these changes. Sitting here in my mind going, this is not happening well. Because Valkyrie, as this has gotten us incentivized to go ahead and interact and our whole military system just in fights with people jumping in on wheels. But
That's pretty good.
yes.
It's really you guys want that. Oh, well, good total. Well, actually, since SWG is first. Which SWG? It's on. Okay.
Okay.
I remember you guys were hitting service. Oh, God, something awful hits your ear.
I was actually on that.
Well, I was involved.
Yes.
We helped you guys with some not too far from business.
Step down in
And then we went on to we built capital for you guys for a long time. The security thing is protecting the miners actually help the systems. So our production line now that stuff they were we're fighting battles. That's all we have.
all I can say is you guys are in better shape as long.
Oh, it's so retro. The thing was, we were bringing in stuff like on the road. The problem was that like it was unrelenting. I think in 1 week it we fought 26 different engagements.
It was just insane. Then after that, they kept running for 5 years. I just sat in the room and skilled up my characters. I never did. I get that.
We held that line for a long time until we ended and we just got crushed. We couldn't, there's nothing we could do about it.
Yeah, it's attrition.
And we were in the grinder. There was only like 20 of us.
Mm-hmm.
But we were holding stuff really well.
Yeah. But the thing is, all 20 of you have to be rah. As soon as it's 15 of you, it's a whole different story.
I was like, we tried to get other people to actually, it was hard to get the other rangers to actually, it wasn't.
Well, renters are notoriously good at banding together.
I feel the facetiousness there.
That was a little bit crazy. There's full circle.
Yeah.
This was at the time we were in KC.
But it's rough.
And
Somebody has to do it.
also, we were in last ones there. And we had one house. Everything we had left was Boston.
The last one. Bob was interesting back then. Because it was, you know, for a while there was like, oh yeah, we're doing everything, and then all of a sudden there's this thing that goes quiet. They'll come through and say, hey, we need a bunch of pilots to drop silos in these areas. And then nothing.
Is there the capital roundtable?
Yes, this is. It says
Melrose Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, two is locked anyway, so it's
Because you gotta generate so much
Startup success.
chart, one of our negative and positive charts. And the track has to be worse than the fast track.
Yeah.
So it's not really your chart.
First and close to die.
You can't.
And for like reborn again.
I have to be on
There's a version of the I can't feel like this, and that's coming up again.
Okay.
Celine, who's the CEO of
So they think they're going to skate parks
just
just
to turn over the reins of every operation
no friction.
his direction. And it required Nike, Warren, Science, LTC, legal. And so with every guy, we're building.
And there's the restriction.
So far, we've been very successful.
What was the second?
People make fun of us like, oh, you're a thing. We've actually learned it on people like, oh, you should. With every NCAA going out, we rolled down that Titan. I don't know if you're linking all this. So you can see we brought in like 20 battleships right on top of it.
You need multiple You're gonna do that. have to force bubbles. So once you're pulling, your bubble can't get fucked.
Well, I don't think we're playing
Changes everything. You know it's not. You can't bubble it. I hope to God someone just goes into high tech and just wipes out all the orphans within Titan. Just so no one can mine in high tech. That's my goal in
And there's also quite a lot of you. What's the question?
So, in regards to super capital hunting, the new doomsday effect, like we used to do like headshots just before downtime. We have any plans of like, which is like, as far as I understand, it's now impossible to do, or really, really hard to do.
Why is that?
Because we drain each other capacitors.
You can still use regular doomsday.
Okay, you can.
Right. That's not being the drain.
Oh.
Wait, say that again?
The regular, normal, current doomsday on Titans isn't getting a drain effect.
So that's staying.
That's staying.
That was devastating.
Oh, okay.
That was.
Why not?
Very happy. Thank you.
You scared
So
us,
to
man.
confirm, these are all new doomsday. This is
brand-
current doomsday.
Yeah, that's right. We are changing the damage on the existing doomsday, but we are not changing much else.
Right now, so it's going to change to where dreadnoughts have siege ability, force auxiliaries have triage. Are the carriers going to have something that forces them to commit? Because I like that kind of gameplay where you have to commit in order to get a benefit.
Not at this stage. I mean, if you've got your fighters out at 200 kilometers or something, you walk away, you're going to leave them and lose them. But no, we're not having a siege-like ability on the Terran.
The signature resolution on exoguns for regular dreads, are they going to be like Titans where you can't apply damage at all?
Pretty much, yeah.
Over 1,500 meters?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, and the damage rates for the rapid fire guns probably be in like 3 or 4K range. You mentioned 2K earlier.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking. We're certainly not locked in, and we want to get some feedback, especially at the Capital Focus Group. So,
I mean, 2 seems kind of a little bit low. I mean, a lot
It's
of
like
times,
indicator range.
especially in W space, like a lot of our damage in fleets are direct.
yeah.
So,
Point of information here. It's really hard to hear. People asking questions. Try to be a little louder. It's bouncing off the fabric in the back.
okay.
So, two
questions. The logistics, are they like faction, like a new faction, like Mark Monte? Are they gonna be like war?
No, they're gonna be a Mark Wednesday.
Okay, and then fighters or squadrons, are you gonna be able to carry an excess of them?
Yes.
So you can just throw them in because you can't return them now?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, yeah. So you'll be able to.
You will have, you will minus it from your inventory, and you will have your extra fighters in your cargo. And then you can just either replace the type of fighters if you want to use another type of squadron, or you can replace broken ones.
Okay, and just sort of follow up, like, is there like a particular, for skills, when we're thinking ahead to logistics capitals, is there something that's gonna lead into that logistics capital?
We haven't decided yet.
Okay.
Are you still looking at making the current XL guns unable to hit stuff like double Vinduab, double painted with a rapier?
Yeah, so do you know how the XL guns work on Titans? Effectively, they look at the signature.
Okay, so it is just a
it's like it's, no, you cannot.
And like, are you discouraging the capital support, the sub-cap support fleets to fight with wormhole dreads currently? Like, there's a strong synergy between them now, but if the dread starts tracking like battleships, then it will turn more into an Emperor Flying Dread game since you don't need to have a bunch of Lokis.
There's going to be interesting gameplay around that. So we're expecting one side might bring in some like high-angle weapon battery fit ones to focus on the subcaps, the other guns with regular gun dreads, and then the other, back and forth. You're going to have to sort of pick and choose exactly what you want to bring into the fight. It's not going to work the way it is now, where you've got things working things down and there's just fucking boots off the field.
Yesterday, when you talked about faction and officer capital mods, the current purple, are they going to be tier assigned up to capital, or they will be stuck to subcaps now?
Which modules, sorry?
Like officer mods, like
Officer strengths and stuff.
and all that other stuff. What happened to those?
So
they're only used right now for capitals.
Yeah, so the current capital officer modules, yeah, they'll be regular capital modules. So for example, like the capitals, the officer scrambler stuff are actually capital modules now, which I'm sure you're aware. Yeah, they'll just be at the end of the new capital scrambler.
Is the relative cost between Titan Supers and Dreads and Carriers going to remain the same?
Yes. Let's get some, like the dude up the back and with the cat that's looking at me.
They have to reimburse or.
Yeah, you.
So you mentioned that you're adding all kinds of new capital-sized modules for the capital series to increase more variety. Are you going to upsize the capital internal cargo bays so that you can carry those modules?
We haven't decided. So there's like
they're kind of small and maybe a bit too.
Yeah. So yeah, we haven't decided. We'd love to get some feedback on it. On one hand, it's pretty cool. Being able to switch out modules on the fly. I mean, after the weapon time runs out, and
I'm just talking. You go somewhere to stage, you can't carry the modules.
That's a good point. We'll see. Yep.
Can you guys give any kind of idea as to the HP difference that you were mentioning earlier? I know that you showed that wonderful graphic that just going straight to heaven.
I like the idea that super carriers are heaven or something. Yeah. Look, we don't have numbers yet. As in, it's not me not telling you, it's because we haven't decided and we want to work with the capital focus group and come up with those numbers. So I can't. Yeah. Sorry. I'll skip through most of it.
With de-emphasizing combat refitting, is there a chance that the levy will lose its 7th launcher slot so it gets 2 utility highs like every other thing? Or is it still going to have that, radical kind of balance there?
I think it's a pretty good idea. As in, it's a pretty good idea to give it the extra utility highs.
And then are the new DDs, are those entirely new modules or scripts?
Entirely new ones.
Alright, so I asked earlier about Marauders and Bastion. When you go into Bastion, you get a weapons timer.
Yeah. So old mate, I can't remember his name because he never told me. He came up and talked to me about this. It's a pretty good point. I can't tell you what we're going to do yet, but I understand that you're redoing a whole bunch in like PV content, especially in like wormholes and stuff. We might do something about that, so we take away the reference time out. But I do need to go and like cross my I's and dot my T's. No, wait, alright, yeah. I need to go and check that to make sure there's not some reason we're doing that.
Okay, thank you. I wondered if you guys were maybe tinfoiling the idea of scripting the range or area of effect of the new states.
Yeah, not at this stage. Yeah, not at this stage, no.
With the sheer number of fighters that are going to be on the new carriers, are we going to adjust the materials required to adjust the pricing?
I don't know. That makes some sense. Otherwise, your price is going to be really expensive. We'll see.
It's expensive ammo. Why not just everything else, every other super carrier? Basically, as a big pilot, my carrier doesn't do that CPS. There's Wyverns to do max take and max gain at the same time. Or is that going to be the same?
The new fighter squadrons are going to change a lot of that anyway, and we're not sure if we want to use the existing like drone damage jams to actually have any effect on them. There's kind of arguments both ways. On one hand, it makes you interesting fitting choices. On the other hand, it might be a little bit unbalancing, especially with like weapons and stuff like that. And refitting the weapon times. Obviously, launching fighters for shooting is something that give you a weapon time, so you can't refit what it does. So that's a good point. I don't have an answer to it yet. I do love your shirt though. Yeah, man.
I have two questions. The first one, since you're removing all electronic warfare immunity, does that mean that you'll be able to receive remote assistance in triage and seeking?
So you won't get remote repair in triage, and almost definitely not remote energy in triage. So we're introducing more than just electronic warfare resistance. We're kind of introducing the opposite of that, like electronic assistance resistance. Yeah, so that we can also like pump those up, and we might just update when you intercede. That might just be 100%.
And then the second question, since you're not going to allow refitting while there's a weapons timer, would the logistics ships be getting a weapons timer if they engage in remote assistance?
That's a really interesting question. We've got two schools of thought. The first one is it makes just balancing a whole heap easier if we say while you are in triage you can't refit, but it also is fun to refit while you're in triage. I love flying triage. So we might do something along the lines of, if you repair someone who has a weapon time, you can gain their weapon time. We haven't locked in what we want to do there yet. We want to game out some situations and get some advice from the very good people in this room. Old mate at the back sitting, yeah, with the two fingers up. The one that just looked around, yeah. Hey, mate.
Quick question in regards to fighter bombers and fighters within supers especially.
Yeah.
Are there plans to transition, say, fighters to like the light drones and the bombers to heavies, or reimburse them, or?
We haven't locked in the plans there yet, but yeah, effectively the fighters will become the light squadron fighters and support, and the bombers will become the heavy.
Two questions. First one, for the fighters, just to confirm, they'll keep the fighter AI without the auto aggression. So they won't be able to just.
So the fighters are a whole, they don't work like drones. They don't have the same AI, they don't have the same interface, they're all brand new code. So no, they're going to be different, and most likely they won't auto-aggress. You're going to have to tell them what to do. So we want to make that gameplay super interesting and have the mastery of the gameplay really high. So if you become really good at using fighters and multitasking, then you're going to do well. It's not going to be so much of I'm running 4 carriers and just AFK. Yeah, sorry. Great shot.
Following up on this question, you mentioned that, let me see, have you thought about more interesting ways to allow the new triage capitals to manage their capacitor? Because right now, the only way to manage a capacitor is to switch modules out, short of using cap boosters. But I feel like there's a lot of room for more interesting, maybe cyclable cap modules that give you a burst of percent-based cap increase or something like that, so that you can come up with unique fits that let you more actively manage your cap aside from just module on, module off, or refit. But a cap battery that lets you, maybe a cap battery does something, right? So that you activate a module, it changes your current capacitor for say 10 seconds on a 30-second cycle or something like that, right? So that you can manipulate your capacitor with more control without having to refit.
Look, it's an interesting idea. We haven't thought of anything like that specifically. We are adding capital capacitor boosters and chargers and stuff, which is going to give you more options as well. And cap batteries. It's an interesting idea.
Hey guys, if you want to talk to outside, you can't hear.
The bloke in the back, yep.
With the changing off the fighters and their roles, what is the range that we're going to be able to deploy the drones? What's the range we're going to be able to target? Is there any changes on the grid, or are you doing anything to change the grid?
Excel Citadel.
Excel Citadel.
You're gonna have to make grid.
We're going to be looking at grid sizes in general. We might make them all just really big. Turns out there's not a lot of reason to have small grids. But this is something we're still investigating. It's a problem that is going to come up with the new camera. It's going to come up with the structures being anchored everywhere. So we're looking at that.
Just to answer your question?
What was the range?
Sorry?
What was the range?
Across the entire grid. So if it's on the same grid, you can control your fighters there and do stuff with them there. On the lock-in question, we're going through some iterations on exactly how we're doing that. So currently the plan is we're probably going to give carriers a fairly long lock range, but if you're fighting outside of that 200 and you're a champion.
Hello.
What about the other guys?
You can share. Someone wouldn't mind.
So yeah, if you're outside sort of the 250 max lock range, then you're just not going to be as effective with your fighters because you won't be able to tell the hit points. But to counter that, we're giving you a whole bunch more UI. Sort of, you saw the mock-up that we did there, showing like damage and misses and whatnot, and exactly what your fighters are doing. So swinging to roundabouts. The dude with the awesome beard.
So we're not going to be stuck with their 2 to 3 lock target limit and also their slow lock.
No. Dreadnoughts will not be stuck with the 2 to 3 locked target limits. Neither will Titans, and they are also probably going to lock a whole bunch faster. There's not really any reason to with the new guns.
True.
If I've set my fighters to attack something and I warp on grid, do I have to reconnect and give them new commands? Or are those commands going to stay active?
I don't know. I'm going to have to talk to the engineer and find out.
The abilities assigned to the fighter squadron, does that happen at construction of the squadron? Or is that something you can refit in the drone bay after you've called them back?
No, so there's going to be a wider range of fighters. So there's not going to just be 4 lights, 4 support, and 4 heavies. We haven't decided on exactly how many yet, but we're actually sort of in these double figures. And the types of fighters that you assign to that particular squadron will determine what abilities. So this is not what's going to happen, but an example might be that the Galanti light fighter has evasive maneuvers and the Caldari light fighter has a missile swarm. And if you put the Caldari light fighter into that squadron and launch it, then that squadron's going to have the missile swarm. Vice versa.
You said that combat refitting would be done with weapons timer and also affects, say, subcaps, global depots, I assume?
Yes, it does.
Have you considered decreasing the weapons timer so that it could actually be more useful in combat, down to, say, 30 seconds to 60?
We haven't considered it. No. Would you like us to?
Yes.
Would you like us to consider it? I didn't say do it. No.
When I calculate the HR, I don't want it refitting the
All right, fine. The person holding the ball up.
So I had a question about the new Doomsday. I saw some of the UI, how you did the swiping laser. I was wondering if it'd be possible to modify the swiping laser, say you choose to start endpoint, but also instead of using scripts, you could do something like adjust the height. So like if you had a wider beam, it would affect, possibly more an area, but it'd be like lower damage, or you could do a tighter beam, that would be higher damage. It'd be a dynamic script. You wouldn't have to slot it in, slot out. You could just choose it.
Great idea.
A couple of people suggested it. It's an awesome idea, but I'm also about like 95% sure that everyone will just have it at the widest beam and just jump in more Titans, and then this effectively just becomes an AoE Doomsday, and that's not the point.
Fair enough.
We would like to reconsider an AoE Doomsday.
The young lady.
Are the new logistical, the new logistic capital ships, are they going to be similar in size and mass to the current capital threads? Like for wormholes, can you still dump them only into C5 and C6 wormholes?
Yeah, they're going to be similar in size and mass.
Okay, so same wormholes and everything?
Yeah. Dude in the blue shirt.
Are super capitals, or are super carriers also losing the logistics capability?
Yes, they are.
On the topic of the force auxiliaries. In the current carriers, the racial carriers, there are fighting carriers, there are logistical carriers, rad carriers. With force auxiliaries,
I love this.
Yeah, that's what they're called. You don't need to air quote.
Do you see racial differences in what the force auxiliaries would do? Would they have minor super carrier effects, something that differentiates between them? They're not fighters anymore in capital class. How do we differentiate between a Minotaur versus a Caldari versus a...
Yeah, we haven't decided on the attribute, like the attributes of these, but yes, there's certainly going to be differences and interesting choices between exactly what one you go. So yeah, but we haven't decided what those are going to be yet. We've got a whole bunch of options, and the dogma said a little bit as well, but yeah, that's a good point. I don't have a direct answer for you just yet. The dude giving you the peace sign.
So, with not being able to refit, have you considered any capital sized modules that would give one effect like armor when they're on, and then when turned off, you would lose the tank, but you'd be able to build cap to be like, it could be one or the other. Yeah. So instead of choosing to refit, you could choose to reduce your tank by turning it off, and then your cap would be killed faster.
All right, okay. No, it's not something we've considered. It's a pretty interesting idea. Yeah, but no, not something we've considered yet.
The AoE, cone or plane style Doomsday, just for the purpose of the most hilarious gate camp ever, will it hit cloak stuff?
Yeah. Did you say cloaked or close?
Close.
Oh, no. I feel like something's changed in the crowd.
I just want to see a DD cut through a stealth bomb. You just see nothing and then racks.
I mean, slices, yeah.
And then the rest of the fleet.
Nobody's gonna go out behind the gun, somebody fleet with $100 billion piece of shit is just gonna die and be tackled like that.
Are you Paul? something the CSM suggested at this stage. We're not thinking about changing the costs on capitals or super capitals. Yeah, they are what they are at the moment. Not going to rule it out in the future. But.
So these two are bored. She's texting. So what questions can we ask them?
Snapchat all of you.
Hey, if you guys want to line up, I got a second mic, so we'll just pass the mic and everyone can hear it.
Awesome.
No, I mean, really, the question is, how can we, what questions are you the...
I'm here, so just in case anybody happens to ask any structure stuff that crosses over with capitals.
And I'm curious as a person about all the fighter stuff.
Does the 10-minute Titan Doomsday timer count as a weapon timer with respect to refitting? The question is the 10-minute timer on Titans for the Doomsday count as a weapons timer with respect to refitting?
And remote ECC, and remote ECC.
And all that stuff. Is that a weapons timer that's 10 minutes long?
I don't know. I'm thinking if we say that it isn't, you're immediately just going to pull the Doomsday off and refit it. So we might have to stop that. I don't know. It's an interesting choice. So the Doomsday has a couple of different things. It's got the warm-up period, obviously. Sorry, the targeting period. Obviously, during that, you don't get a weapons timer. It's got the capacitor drain, like the warm-up beam, the firing. During all that, you're immobile. Like you can't move around or walk away. And then that mobility keeps going for a little bit. We haven't decided the time, but sort of 30 seconds, which is I think what the current one does. During that time, you definitely wouldn't be able to refit. After that, it's an interesting question, and I'm not sure.
Maybe only Doomsday time or Doomsday swap outs in Citadel or something like that.
Maybe?
I wanted to ask about the more boring capitals, the industrial sites. Are the jump freighters going to be included in the HP rebalance?
I don't know, but that's a good question.
And is the rappel going to still have industrial ship limitations, or is it going to get relaxed?
We haven't decided, this isn't locked in, but we're looking at relaxing that limitation so you can just fit whatever you want. Sorry, just put whatever ships you want into that.
Mining Doomsday.
My question is about manufacturing. Is there any plans in the future for maybe allowing us to build supers and stations? Because in the current state that it is right now, you basically have to shoot a flare up in the air and say, I'm building this right here.
That should never stop.
That shouldn't stop.
Currently, certain groups have a
influence.
I don't know what to call it, a dominance on these types of stuff.
You can build them in the new assembly structures that we are doing pretty much after Citadels. So you have another place that you can build them.
So we'd be able to build them in Citadels?
Not Citadels. The next class of structures that we're going to build is the assembly array. And that's going to allow us to.
But you can shoot those too, right?
You can shoot that too.
Alright, so Peel and Imperial will continue to be able to maintain their dominance on supers and, okay.
Hey, but you're not over behind.
With the new force auxiliaries, is there going to be one focused on actual useful hull reps, or are we just going to continue to do armor and shield?
I love the idea of actual serious hull fleets. I'm not going to rule anything out. CCP Fuzzy is like, he absolutely adores hull ramps, and if he has anything to say, that might happen, but I'm not promising anything.
So really big grids sound like they could be a lot of fun and have a lot of tactical options. Is there any thought into how, if I'm not alphaing ships that are 500 kilometers away, how I'm going to keep them there and not warp away?
You could send some of your friends over to tackle them. Also, the support fighters, we're pretty sure we're going to have like a warp scramble version of those.
Excellent.
So with the new Doomsdays, it requires the energy neutralization, or Does it require the cap neutralization? So in order to use it, you have to have ships within that sphere, or you can just drop a single Titan, it neutralizes in that area, and then you can drop another Titan, do the same thing, drop another Titan, do the same thing.
The second one. So yeah, it doesn't matter if there's anyone around you or not, but if anyone is around you, then they're going to get neutralized. So.
About the interaction with structures, we try to prevent stocking games and citadels, and like we try to make like threats and so on with timers. Can we do the same with force fields, so we cannot enter force fields when we have timers, and stop that game?
No, we're probably not going to be touching POS.
Legacy code.
So super capitals can always just do their whole, dance around process again, continue with that.
Yeah, and we're going to hurry up and try to get
Okay, we're asking a lot of process.
Don't touch the legacy code, you might break the game.
My question more on the current state of Dread versus Dread fights. Is Dread still would be, okay, I'm throwing $1 billion down the hole because anytime I'm under siege, I die. Because that's how Raider fights is. Once it brings enough DPS and fighter bombers, or fighter equipment, there's no survivability. That's, you hit siege mode, it's 5 minutes, you're dead. Especially in major cap battles.
Look, we're going to give you more refitting options. So that's going to change the equation a little bit. But I'm not really against capitals dying. So
it's a guaranteed death. There's no chance.
Yeah, I get that. And what you're saying is a pretty good point. So we're certainly going to look at it. I don't have any hard answers, and it's always going to depend on the situation.
Because I'm glad we talked last night. I believe that siege mode Dread should receive cap because they can take my cap.
Yeah. That was a pretty interesting conversation. I thought.
But
yeah, that's a good point. We'll see.
Any thoughts on combat capitals that do not have jump drives? And putting those in the game?
No.
Local defense.
Oh, right.
Possibly used in high sec. If you're building citadels in high sec.
Not this stage.
And kamikaze fighters.
Wow.
Larrigan, I was told to ask by Otto when we can expect a death blow.
Yes.
Later today.
Later today.
I've got 2 quick questions. The first one is will the existing or any of the new Doomsdays be able to be utilized against citadels?
Do you want to answer that? Do you want to answer that?
Sorry,
I just wanted to know if the existing Doomsday or any of the proposed new ones will be able to be utilized against citadels or any other of the upcoming structures.
Yeah, we don't. You got the magic stick now.
Hello. Yeah, why not?
Nice.
Yeah. For applying damage to structures, we're going to not allow bombs and smart bombs, but then everything else. So, yes.
And my second question is will the new fighter squads, will they be able to be tackled, warp jammed, neutralized, any other non-damaging effects?
Probably not neutralized, but yeah, like you saw on the mock-up that we had there's a space showing the different electronic warfare effects on them. So they'll certainly be able to be warp scrambled, although they don't warp, so I don't know how that would be helpful.
But that would shut down their micro warp drive, right?
Yeah, that's true, and they'll also be able to be webbed. Damping and jammings are a pretty big possibility, but damping and stuff might not be so effective on them. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So, just to be clear, the new Doomsdays act as cap neutralizers for subcaps as well?
Yes, but we do have the possibility of actually balancing that neutralization effect based on signature radius. So while they may, for example, cap out your carriers or your titans in that area, they might have a much limited effect on a fleet of grifters trying to tap into it.
Because otherwise it's an AoE neutralizer, so.
Which is kind of cool though, because I want to see tons jumped in and used for that. But
Yes.
and then die.
Just a couple of quick questions about the new triage or the force auxiliaries. Are they going to be roughly equivalent in terms of scan res, rep projection, and rep strength to the current triage carriers?
Roughly, yes, but we are rebalancing hit points, and that means we're going to have a look at repairs and stuff as well. And we're intending on doing some general changes on the whole scan resolution stuff as well. So, but yeah, roughly equivalent.
Okay, and then are they similar? Are they going to be able to? They're not going to be able to deploy drones in triage. I take it. Okay. Thank you.
Two questions. One, you already mentioned that you can't receive remote repairing in triage. That makes total sense. Have you considered allowing dreads to receive remote repair? They're losing their EWAR immunity in siege. Have you considered something like that?
Look, we have considered it. We haven't come up with a final decision on that yet. And there's actually a possibility where we might give them like a 95% remote repair resistance sort of stat, so they might be able to see some remote repairs, but we just haven't decided, and would love to hear more player feedback about it, see what you guys think.
And then the other question is, if you have fighters deployed at say 200 kilometers or whatever, and the members of the squadron start to die, you have additional fighters in your drone bay, can you launch fighters piecemeal to reinforce your squadrons in the field?
No. No.
Thank you.
Hi, just a quick question. You mentioned earlier that you're releasing capital propulsion modules. Would that possibly include like a micro warp drive or something so you get away from the new doomsdays?
Yeah, so we're probably going to release a micro warp drive. Is almost definitely locked in. After that, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but there just might be some interesting choice with like cap usage and fitting and whatnot. So yeah, we are looking at a micro warp drive for capitals, but you're not going to be speed. Sorry.
What about MJD? So what? We have what? 80 meters per second. A micro warp drive is moving at what? 100 grams for the next type?
400.
400? All right. What about MJD? 5,000
We're not sure about an engine.
All right, thank you.
That's 400, by the way, that's not locked in. You shouldn't be blogging about that.
Too late, you already said it.
But yeah, you're not going to see like the nano 2,000 meter a second capitals. That's just
Hi, Terry Rader from Shadow Cartel. Just had a specific question on the weapons timers. Now, those weapon timers for refits, is that capital or subcap also?
all.
All?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was talking to our alliance members, and I'm sure you guys know that we use like a certain refitting tactic with our battleships and fleet comps.
Yeah.
And we've used this several times before, and kind of developed it. Why do you think that subcaps need to have this change of weapon timer?
Yeah.
Because it kind of kills a certain type of gameplay.
It does. And look, that gameplay isn't ruled out, but you are going to have to stop doing any, like you're going to have to stop offensive actions for 30 seconds before you can go and refit. 60 seconds.
60. So like for example, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Like when we have like our Mac fleet, right, and we get escalated, so we have like autocannons and neut fit. And then we have like, supers dropped on us. We have an instance where we refit to a smart bomb and counter and neuter the DPS of the fighters. So that 1 minute, basically, at that point, they have time to really wreck your fleet. And it kind of, I think, feels that, it kind of like, just,
Get bigger ships.
I bigger ships. I'm just saying for what we feel is kind of like, kind of killing a certain type of game style.
Look, it's an interesting choice. It's an interesting point. The decision was originally made because we wanted to ensure there was like a continuity, like the obvious gameplay here. It wasn't like, oh, it's different for these ships, but over these ships it's completely different again.
Right.
I'm not going to say that we won't look at that decision again, and look, come and have a chat to me, walk me through some of this stuff.
Okay.
And make sure you post on all the feedback forums and apply for the capital group, and let's have a chat about it.
Cool. All right, thank you.
The fighter special abilities, are those going to be kind of like a toggle on situation where then they'll just kind of do that on their own, or are you going to have to, every time you want to activate, like click that third little tiny button above your other big fighter button?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, if you turn them on, will they kind of keep? If I just told them to mute, they're going to keep muting until I tell them not to.
It depends on the ability, right? So if if there's a neutralizing effect or a wall scrambling effect or something like that, they're just going to you can set them onto auto cycle or not. If it's something like a torpedo run, then they're going to have a fairly long cooldown. So you might launch yourself torpedoes and then they're going to have to cool down for 2 or 3 minutes or whatever that we decide to put in there. So yeah, in that case, you're probably not going to leave it on auto repeat. Also, a lot of these abilities are going to have pretty interesting targeting, so it's not so much of a just click button and ignore. It's like you actually want to set up a run to ensure that whatever ability you're using has the maximum amount of effect. So auto repeat doesn't make much sense in that instance. It will depend on the ability.
That's good.
So with the capital rebalance, you're adding a bunch of new modules and extra capital weapons. Does that include capital-sized smart bombs?
No.
Hey guys, good question. Sorry, I need to find the mic. Bumping, number one, is anything going on with bumping with capitals, especially? Fleet positioning for capitals is pretty important, especially wormhole space. And the second two of them sit next to each other, they're 100 kilometers apart in no time.
At this stage, no. It's something we don't like, and I've been personally affected by this, so I know how frustrating it is. But yeah, that's at this stage, no.
Well, the help of the captain should be spread out.
With slow cats, you guys are kind of addressing some of the problems with remote repair from Archon, for example, or all carriers. But their ability to just constantly put out endless amounts of drones was also another reason they're imbalanced. And they're the only drone carrier that can put out nearly unlimited amount, plus the server ramifications for having 5,000 drones from a fleet. Is there any iteration on that with carriers?
Carriers won't be able to launch drones.
At all?
At all.
Okay.
Their fighters.
And fighters will still remain the same size, so they won't be able to put out 500 of them.
Correct. I mean, they're limited to 5 or between 3 and 5 squadrons. We haven't really decided exactly where that goes yet. We want to play test that. 5 to spec might be too many to manage at the same time. So yeah, you launch 3 or 5 squadrons and that's it. Like you can't keep launching squadrons. You have to wait for them to come back.
And my last question on that I have for this is stacking penalties. Instead of, this has wider game ramifications as well, but have you looked at addressing perhaps an iteration where remote repair would have a stacking penalty? So after, say, 20 reps on a target, you would have a dramatic fall off in the ability for that next rep to provide assistance, instead of just removing repping altogether from fleets.
It's something we've looked at. So there's a couple of technical issues, which I won't try and talk about because I'll muddle them up. But there's also some interesting just counter issues. Like if we implement something like that, the very best way to kill anyone is going to be to fly up them and immediately stick 20 small repairers on them. Take one small repairer so that they can't effectively see any reps. So yeah, so look, there's both technical and game design issues around that. It's something that we're looking at, but we don't have any views on that just yet.
Less logistics in the game.
I have a few questions about the Hand of God Doomsday. The first one, if something's pointed by a focus point, will it still be affected by the AoE teleport?
If you're pointing a capital or super, the super capitals and capitals just aren't affected by the teleport at all.
Okay.
And sub-capitals, I'm not sure. I mean, you could just go into it and go with them.
That was my next question, was could you launch it at ground zero?
Like on yourself?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. You would effectively be tackling yourself though.
No. So you're the capital. Like, you capture your immunity.
Yeah, but it will warp scramble capitals and disrupt your warp drive for like 60 seconds after the effects ends. So this isn't a way to get your friends out of trouble. It's a great way of tackling your friends. So yeah, you could totally do that and then be stuck.
Do you government tell them to do that?
I hope so.
Hey, how's it going? I had a question about the capital sized prop mods, and coming from wormhole space, the mass on wormholes that's really limiting because currently you can't mount 500 MN plus on a Phoenix through a wormhole. It's too large. So what's the mass addition to your ship that these prop mods are going to add?
I don't know. But that's a really good point, and I won't write it down because I'll lose a piece of paper.
Yep.
Instead, I will rely on my colleagues to try and remind me later.
Quick question about fighters, fighter bombers, and their abilities. Will you be able to call in your fighter squadron, hot swap their abilities out, and then send them back out? So you have out, a bunch of heavies with, anti-capital ship missile torpedoes on them. Can you pull them back in, swap them out for anti-fighter missiles?
Sort of. So in that case, you could pull the squadron back in and unload the heavy fighters and then put light fighters into that base and launch them, but you can't fit the fighters. The fighters that you launch have the fighters that you have in your carrier have a specific set of abilities. Yeah, you don't fit them on. They're not modules. It's just the A type of fighter has these abilities, and the B type has these abilities, and if you launch it, that's what you get.
Can you still abandon them?
Probably not. That's also really mean. There's people in there. As you know, Mars.
Where else are we not?
They're dead forever.
Well, they die too if the capital dies.
Alright, so don't die.
But you want the capitals to die.
My question is, in regards to carriers and super carriers, are you going to add an ability to set waypoints? Because it's such a large grid now, so that when say you send your squadron out and it affects it finishes its target, like say it blows it up. But say then you want to send it over to another section or call it. Is that something you guys are thinking about adding? Because being able to multi-manage and micromanage is more the thing I'm looking for. Is going to be incredibly effective, especially on such a large grid.
Yes. Yeah. So you'll be able to give waypoints for movement, probably not for damage. So you can't just waypoint damage your entire fleet.
Right. No, I'm saying say there's someone 170 kilometers out. I want to send them out to there, but then I'm looking at something over here, and then maybe have a ping go off when they've arrived to that destination, so you can focus on what's going on there.
Oh, that's less about waypoints than you were talking about.
Well, no, I meant on top of waypoints.
Oh, right, yeah. That's a good point. We haven't thought about it yet. We want to play test this a whole bunch and get it on CC when we can, so you guys can start play testing and some feedback like that. So yeah, but that's a good point.
Cool.
So I have a question concerning T2 modules for the capitals. Concerning the skills and the necessities for that, will we all require flat out level 5 all the time? And is there going to be any changes related to the scaling for the amount of SP and training time required to use those modules?
You know what level already?
If you want to use CAT level Tech 2 extra large weapons, you will need level 5 extra large weapon skill to then train that.
So will that scale out like standard large projectiles and then your autocannons versus?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Afternoon. 2 questions. One, with the addition of SMAs to dreads and other things, loosening of some restrictions, can we please loosen the cargo bay restrictions on stuff we put in them? An extra nuke here, liquid ozone in your rapier that you have to keep emptying out just to put your ships in the SMA.
It's a good idea. Well, at least the liquid ozone one was always really annoying. Look, I'll have a chat with some people and see.
Okay, the second thing is I want to name a couple modules and see if you can tell me what's going to happen to them. DCUs, drone control units?
Yeah, we're not sure. But we're not sure, but they're not going to work the way they do now, that's for sure.
Okay, and shadows.
Yeah, someone asked me about this before. Again, we're not sure. We're expanding the lines of fighters, so we don't exactly know what we want to do with shadows. Maybe they'll get some special Sancho ability or something like that. We'll see.
So, as you're aware, in Pandemic Legion, we have a fleet called Slow Cats. Why are you killing it? Sorry. No.
Because I hate it. I put
so many of them. So, my real question was, yeah, on carriers, you have different modules on the high slots, reppers and whatever, cap transfer. Are you planning on putting new high slot modules in to replace the?
Yeah, we are. So we've got the capital neutralizers and stuff like that, and there's some other ideas we're floating around, but we're just not quite ready to talk about yet.
Cool.
Yeah, I have a question came in from my alliance thread, and I'm sorry for anybody who does this. They were asking, capitals are restricted from high sec, as they will forever be. What about restricting supers to only null sec?
I don't even have a super.
And that's why
I know
accidents happen.
that. We've had several large groups in low sec that control the entire area, and they don't allow it for any good fights. Before, a long time ago, it was PL, controlling the alarm in low sec. And then my second question is, why was the roar ball put on the side to be the biggest piece of crap?
Sorry, what?
Why was the roar ball put on the side of these capital rebalances to be the biggest paperweight in the game?
Thank you.
It has, ever since the compression changes to the pauses, the jump clone changes to stations that everybody get them, roar balls next to useless compared to work with.
Look, we know the Royal needs some attention. There's some ideas that we've been kicking around that we want to try and include in this, the expansion, the Citadel's expansion. I can't talk any more about it. Like, we haven't decided exactly, and we also, but we realize that it's a problem. We want to do some work on it. I've flown a Royal many times, even killed things in it, believe it or not. So I feel your pain.
Soon to you.
Do you guys see a super capital logistics ship?
That'd be cool. I don't have an answer for you yet.
Question about stuff that doesn't get used much but has great potential, especially for people who move ships around for alliances. The boathead, can you please put a jump drive on it? Yes. Why the hate?
Yes. We'll see.
Tech 2. Give me something.
So one question, you've got a lot of modules that allow capitals to apply damage to subcapitals. What do you see as the role for subcapitals in capital fleets or capital fleet engagements?
I see them killing capitals a whole bunch. So you've got a whole bunch more options on exactly how you can counter capitals now. We're going to be changing their hit points. They're obviously going to be coming down. You can also use all of your E-War effects on them. Like if you're in a Titan or a Dreadnought and flapping a whole bunch of dudes, if you've got guys coming in and doing tracking disrupting, that's not going to be super nice for you. So yeah, look, there's no question that capitals are going to have a larger impact on sub-capitals, but vice versa, sub-capitals are going to have a much larger impact on capitals as well.
Less of a question and more of a suggestion. That graph that you showed earlier today where the hit points were just absolutely ridiculous as soon as you got to capital class ships, I think the same thing is true for the mass. And it sounds like you're trying to build a lot of excitement around using these new capital ships. I think as a wormholer, it's extremely unplausible to functionally use capitals in large engagements or in larger groups of capitals. You basically have, as a defensive party, you just win because you can just have more capitals in your army, essentially. I'm very much generalizing. But I think Nova will disagree. If you flatten out the mass over the capitals just like you are with the hit points, that you could introduce a lot more exciting gameplay.
One last question for me. With the rebalance of dread guns not being able to hit subcaps and the reduction in DPS for the new guns, the fast firing ones, have you considered this is gonna pretty much obliterate any ability of smaller groups of doing capital escalations and wormholes? Because it's gonna get to the point where in order to do enough DPS to clear the site before all your dreads are dead, you're gonna need like 8 dreads.
Yeah, we're very aware of the effect this is going to have on running sites and capital escalations in wormholes. I can't say anything about this, but just watch this space. Alright. We know where you're coming from, trust us, we're not ignoring the wormhole dudes.
So with the old fighters going away, what will be happening to the blueprints? Do you have a plan on them converting into new squadron blueprints? Or is it just a case of everyone who owns them offload onto the market now?
So the way the fighters work is you don't build them as a whole squadron. You still build individual fighters and you still load individual fighters onto your carrier and your fleet, what is it, hangar bay or whatever. Anyway. Yeah, so you still have the individual fighters there, you just launch them as squadrons now.
With the removal of triage on the regular carriers, are you guys looking at rebalancing the local capital reppers? Because when you're not in triage right now, they're kind of anemic, and when you are in triage, they're awesome.
It's something we're going to look at, yeah.
Hello. This is more of a nit than anything, but you mentioned that the new guns for anti-subcapitals on capitals would be high-angle guns. Well, don't you actually need high-tracking guns?
I mean, this is evil line, man. Yeah, look, it's just a class of gun. They're going to have individual names, etc. So yeah, that's just.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's,
the name tracking is just
actually, interestingly, during World War I and back then, the ship, like the guns on ships, they would be called high-angle guns specifically if they could shoot at aircraft. So we kind of got a little bit.
Yeah, that's talking about trajectory.
It is, which doesn't make any sense in space. But yeah, I get your point. Yeah, it's just a name.
So I find the wormhole discussion actually kind of interesting. For smaller groups that are site running and are already at the mercy of a 30 or 40 person tech 3, blob that jumps on top of them. If they have good positioning, good triage pilots, they have a chance to survive. I mean, or at least do some damage, right? Now they can screw themselves. The positioning is poor. The dreads are all sitting on top of each other. They're in a bad spot to begin with, and they screwed themselves by their own setup. But with the current situation, now that dreads, their high DPS weaponry will not track subcapitals. They're going to be subjected to Tengu ECM, which is very popular for the tech 3 groups. Are those groups now that run sites basically SOL? I don't see any options for these people other than being even more of a target as it is.
Look, the new Citadels are going to have some super cool weapons, so do you want to talk a little bit about them? Yeah, go see C3 Nullarbors.
Oh, I'm not talking about the structure situation. I'm talking about they're in the middle of a site and they get jumped. And if they have proper planning, they have at least a marginal success rate. They can defend themselves. But with this new change, there is no defense. Especially if the new high tracking or high angle weaponry only goes to 2 or 3 kilometers. It doesn't do anything for them. Proteus sits at 20 kilometers and does 500 DPS.
So let me clarify that. When I'm saying short range guns, like what's the maximum range on a pulse rate revelation right now?
Like 50?
Yeah, 50. That's short range for capitals.
So the high tracking, high angle weaponry will reach out to a distance.
Yeah. Not 2 or 3 kilometers, like 50, 60, somewhere around.
Short range dread.
Short range dread, not like blaster in your face, actual indicator hit.
So you do have in mind that we're not turning cows into just instant meat.
No. And we're not. And look, there's more to come with wormholes. We're just a little bit too early to talk about it yet.
One quick question. Cap captures on capitals. Is that's all under the logistic part or what?
Yeah, we just want to give you more fitting choices. It's also We haven't announced this yet, but we're making, in fact, no, I'm not going to talk about that yet. Yes. It's going to be a devlog coming soon with more details about just batteries in general.
So I have 2 questions.
Well, these are the last 2.
One is, following your love of destroying capital, do you plan to maybe decrease the time it takes to build them?
Maybe. It's something we'll think about.
And following that, the material cost is pretty high, as we've been addressing multiple times. At some point, regardless if you want to, you're going to have to look at that and bring it down. Otherwise, someone will run out of capital all the time, everywhere.
Look, it's something we have looked at, and yeah, at this stage, we're not intending on making any changes.
Mining Oracle just sweeps across the field and
Thanks very much for your time, guys. Come up and chat to us anytime.
That gives your guys something to do, man.
Thank you so much.
Judging by the disc values, how many extra marks of those we have. We know those numbers like before the new year. I call materials we have them running once the
Just a message, this is doing just say get out.
Is there going to be a racial situation? I'm not saying these practical for the game, but it'd be fun to have a test server.
I totally agree with it. I the story and you see it's never possibility to just wreck with those. Like this next day, the chance it comes back, see what just like make it a little bit cut off from everyone else and go heading towards
That's easier to save not destroy them. Maybe that's something that's like the observatory realized. So building the system, you can finish up and then after time all gets shut down. It can't shoot. It's out of range. But you get very good control. Really the only difference is they have change the settings and do it. You have like a instructions and it doesn't make any difference except for like certain lines. So if you're going to do the same that would just be it would just be for administration. Anyone can go this is like if you're open up. It has to be at least 3 feet. But it would just be it's the structure and has but they don't so you can have another even if they destroy and you have your own dedication to that. So you have other people yeah, sure. Well, that's a it's an information like we use so much to little bits on their own sound the same. Well,
and they'll wait for 3 systems away.
You can make, you get an installation here in the sense of
back and forth between 2 systems.
something which really but that gates like new
rotates as you walk past. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, no, it's just too expensive to make something like that. We have to get all the rest of the structures out. You do, you have the same weight that the ships have. So if you fit different configurations,
But we didn't get it because someone.
I mean, if you bring yeah, and it's not just like symmetrical. They're actually they're allowed to put more visual language to the structures. So there'll be lots of things in places to be right. No, it's going to have quite a lot of like coverage all the way around. These things are huge as well. You need to have a cost. There's actually a rip to next one in that picture. You just can't see it.
You're never actually or easily eliminated if stuff is there. Yeah, you can't have your defensive suspension.
That's sort of slated for observatory collects or interferes with the intelligence. And this could be disrupting the numbers on your killing the system. Or like the scan block. Like stuff like that, basically messing with intel, yeah, that's just, that's a bigger project, that has a lot more unknowns about it, so a lot more that is what the observatory not all the they'll still have good defenses, but so there'll be a lot more turnover. Because we did because of that positive reaction, we're going to have an addictive destruction. That pository manufacturing, we're going to have addictive destruction. It's a whole shield that has a set of fittings, upgrade from different. I don't think it's anything. So you build this fix the large ship manufacturing service to it. And if also put a small ship manufacturer, so you can get a free garage. You can also put automatic navigation on the city, so you can do ship manufacturers when we release those modules. Yeah, so when that stuff comes out, put them on the city. But you can still come up with a bonus. It'd be like fitting a money right. Do it once. So some people you can do like if somebody wants to come in that's okay. Yeah, we'll run that for a bit cheaper, then we'll trade these in and get some transfer. And then at some point we'll just so we'll do it after stage 2. And we're going to do that for each
Because I said the rock you're changing that to 75.
Depending on what it does. Yeah. If you just use it for storage, you can use a server. If you use it for manufacturing,
Actually, I gotta get rid of it. It's like that sounds kind of weird, huh?
no, because I can see exactly how you got put them up.
Well, if you're looking at it, actually right, it's
Or destroying a regular ship that's undocked.
So you'll have to bring a medium.
Just because it's cheaper to build.
Have the bootstrap.
Well, just, yeah, no, that makes sense,
but we still
at a
expect
base level, you'll be able to average it out. Otherwise, and bring it into the seamless. So it's like storage costs. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, but if you're gonna ask the local sites, we know we should fix it, but it's not it doesn't have any information on that. So.
Well, certainly, he was in Aeon forever too.
Yeah, they're supposed to be, like, those are adders, how wormholes were originally supposed to be, you know, it's like a daydreaming kind of thing, people are supposed to live in them.
That was the original design.
For what, they never thought that anyone would live in it. Really? Wow. They said it's going to be so difficult. So shadow wormholes were wormholes that are supposed to
whatever keys in, you can build them.
yeah. Interference.
Wormholes were never supposed to be lived in. Well, it makes a lot of sense now why it's a big pain in the ass, because if you were never originally lived there, now that all these questions is like, well, we've got pockets, and you've got stations, and now we're outposts, or whatever you call it. Now it makes a lot of sense.
you're still carrying some of that baggage when you're figuring out what to do.
You know, a couple of wormholes, there's some supers in wormholes. Because when they originally, because they original C6s had enough mass to slip 2 types of supers. Now, there are only like 4 of them in there, but they're in there. And I can't get them out. I'm like, hey, Johnny.
Right now, like the dead space, right, like on the smaller dead space ones. The package fellowship. Those different.
They suck it faster, it's stuck less.
But that's why.
But they're there.
What's gonna happen with that?
Now, see, that would be one of the new structures, a little bit more of that management, a little bit more of that capacitor management.
There's the CEO part of me that goes, I don't want some schmuck with a freighter repackaging my city.
Yeah, or you can unanchor your citadel.
That's where CEOs get nervous.
But you can repackage your ships.
The only thing you can't do with the stations.
You can't repackage
Yeah, you can repackage your pods and all that.
No, as in, if I've got a ship in a maintenance array at QS, currently you cannot.
Extended, so you can.
So, here's another little I'm also fixing the COS. Because we just had to fix all of that for Citadels. While we were there, now you can package ships. We have to carry some damage from us.
So big. Right. Because that big living dog, it's very,
It's not much.
it's non-existent.
But it's a alarm clock, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a problem because once a week you have an alarm.
No, I'm saying aggressively.
Yeah, I know. Once aggressively.
I have two times in a row with our first hours, 2 days ago. Wake my guys up at 3 a.m.
Sorry, I'm a market guy, so yeah, the press on pins went up just about 5 minutes after the announcement.
Well, actually, we're also looking at the blind side of that. It's like, is aggressively bringing positive.
God. Well, yeah, because Scorch on a rev just made like a lot of my alliance.
Now it's like, hey guys, this guy, especially with the what I'm saying is, I now have to play capital series.
No, you don't. Battleships is quite comfortable to take out. It just takes a little.
Well, so there's overtime.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure
If
it's
you're
overtime.
applying damage, it will cause a pass.
You have 3 hours.
No, you have 3 hours to start it. So yes. It's gonna be, if you start damaging it, it's gonna try to repair itself. How many?
10 minutes cycle.
The 15-minute repair cycle, which will cause it to continue Yeah, we need to, it's gonna be fairly hard to.
One little rift or clean away, that would be a nice.
We're gonna have to do it as like a percentage of base HP. Pretty small one, but not so much.
I'll just sit there with standard laser beam.
Yeah, just clean away at it.
Just to drag it out.
Drag out.
No, it doesn't. It only shows you what is the action process. Because it has to be. It's going to be newbie friendly. They don't even know that it's a player station.
Well, I'm thinking right now, you don't have no way of knowing when you can dock and buy
The
something.
market will show you any place that you can.
If you can't dock it, you can't buy it.
That's right. These have totally changed like into the market during 5 years.
Yeah.
subtracting skill points out. Basically, the skill point is only the skill point is like and then what part of the delta is I've got to the levels too. After a year, I went to my class actually. After that, yes. Oh, it's small room. I spent $30. Oh, it's very expensive. We used to have. No, we used to have. Yeah, I've got skills for record change. I've got skills for shit on my phone now because I bought the quote skills. That's so cool. Blue chips like fun. No way. Well, yeah. I mean, I like to wait for the new guys. I think the Christmas room is great, right? Just being able to join a room. Expecting to apologize. How's it going? It's little tired.
Yeah, man, really quite tired.
What time are you in now? You used to put that like around.
This is like just after midnight. I don't want to get readjusted too much because I'm just quite tired. So I want to go back to the whole time zone. It's the cross buttons. I don't know if that works for me or against me. Can't figure out.
It works against you. Because effectively you're going to have 9 hours of like going back to 8 hours.
Just take a day off. No, I went straight from this to another show Valkyrie, to more people.
Oh no, which show?
Paris.
That's the industry, man.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to Paris, as well, they're an hour east.
Yeah.
So that's 10 hours.
But the dates
Keep stacking them up, Jim.
Yeah.
Just keep throwing them on the top there.
Well, when do the clocks go down? Are they in summertime or winter time? Because it sounds like you're going to go from British summer to West Coast summer to Paris, maybe somewhere doing winter.
Yeah.
Maybe Paris winter. So yeah, it's probably 10 hours.
Who asked you anyway?
Did you find him?
No.
I just saw him walking out of the city here and down there.
Okay.
I'm going to the bathroom or something.
He'll be here, yeah.
It won't be late.
No.
The risk would be
Bring the house down. we get some more seats in.
We're all demoing the game right now, so.
Yeah. How's it going, guys? Having a good day?
Yep.
Woo!
Minutes?
Yeah. Are we up against a particularly sought after?
I'm not sure. What's up?
Yeah, the structured one, man.
Like the huge citadel?
Yeah, the citadel.
Come on! We never had a chance.
You're right.
I think it's a roundtable, it's the keynote, right, the like presentation.
Yeah.
We never had a chance. Little old Valkyrie against those big space. It was a fix.
Either way, I'm going to play Kiss Mini Golf.
Kiss Mini Golf. Anyone been to Kiss Mini Golf before? Yeah, it's a thing in Vegas.
Kiss Mini Golf versus Vegas.
You get like
balls up his tongue into a mouth or something.
One of the holes is got his mouth, and you got to put it up the tongue.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That was not some like cool Irish guitar stuff or some other band like I was very
Did you guys just arrive?
No, Jim's work like does the clocks go back on Sunday? Like whether it's better or worse.
What is it then?
Which is worse?
I'm going on Tuesday. I don't care what then. I feel the. I think that's for a boat.
I stay in Vegas till Tuesday.
Keep going.
Lose all the paycheck.
Maybe going. I'm just gonna session with kids and hopefully get a day pass.
Every single day.
Alright, let's start. I think other people come in, see how it goes. Thanks for coming, guys. The Valkyrie Roundtable. Just here to answer any questions or any queries and stuff you have about Valkyrie. I know we've been speaking a lot to a lot of people like over the last couple of days and pub crawl last night and stuff about the game and how things are coming along and what we're up to and VR things that we've done and stuff. I'm currently like an artist and narrative designer on the game and
I'm an associate producer, so I find out what I need to do and I help it get done. Like people like Cook. Not a lot of spreadsheets recently, eventually.
So anyone got any questions? Anyone want to start?
Just to give you a symbol on the start of the thing off, when Valkyrie goes live, will we have the option, understanding that it's not going to take place in the same instances that the activities are going on, and will we be able to make corporations within our current alliances that deal specifically with Valkyrie?
So at the moment, like Valkyrie and Eve is like our separate games. And I know like a lot of people have been talking to me like over this week and like ever since, like EVR and Valkyrie came around, like how great it would be to connect these two things together, like these two systems together. Like it is a great dream, like it's like these two do fit together perfectly and there's a lot to do there. But we're just quite a small team. Like in our office, like there's only like 30 of us and stuff. And we're very focused on making Valkyrie the best game it can be as a separate entity at the moment. So we really want to make sure that Valkyrie, like we deliver on the stuff we're talking about yesterday, the core gameplay stuff, like making sure it's a great multiplayer game, giving it its own, like it's a game based in the universe and it's based in that, it has that aesthetic, but it has some twists and we're working on making sure that that is a unique twist and something unique to us. And then maybe further down the line, never say never, the potential I guess is there to bring it into Eve or start to combine that stuff. But that's something for future discussion or future thought. Right now it's just focus on making Valkyrie a good game.
Well, the question was mostly directed at, so I'm part of one of the major alliances, and I was discussing this with a few people. Like I was like, well, when this game goes live, I'd really like to make a corporation and lead our Valkyrie team, and maybe earn us some glory in tournaments when that starts happening. So that's why I asked.
I think that we are aware of the importance of social aspects of games. However, the current sort of corporation and alliance setup that EVE Online has, it probably isn't entirely well suited or applicable to a game like EVE Valkyrie. So while we do appreciate the sort of what you guys are used to and how you're used to playing EVE Online, and taking the best parts of that, it's maybe not as suitable for a game with a lot of smaller battles.
Will there be some kind of analog for that though? Like, will we be able to make like a clan? Like, will players be able to share the same kind of tags? We have some sort of pretend corporation, not related to a meat corporation, but just some way of forming a community and identifying themselves as a member of a given group, whether you call it a clan or a guild or a corporation or a fleet or whatever.
Yeah, we haven't said anything about what we're going to do like that, but like I said, we appreciate as gamers and game developers the importance of that social aspect as well.
Yeah, so I mean, Valkyrie is like is a multiplayer game at its core, at its heart. That's definitely what we've been focusing on the most. As I kind of like alluded to yesterday at the keynote and stuff, we are trying to get a little bit of narrative and stuff in there. And you can see with Convoy as an example, it's something that we have. It's not the same as what we've been showing before. You know, like it's a single player experience, a small level that gives a little bit of context and a little bit of history to the world and helps build a little bit more of what Valkyrie is and the Valkyrie universe. So we're trying to put in some PvE aspects in there. We'd never go as far to say that there was like a campaign or a single player game, but we are working on things where we're trying to leverage some like PvE like sections that we could use to get people used to VR, to get used to like playing the game, just to like enjoy the world of Valkyrie like in a different state, just jumping straight into that really hectic multiplayer environment. So it's definitely like way on the multiplayer side, but we're starting to explore some of these aspects.
And the second question would be like, are you confident or comfortable with the current input? Are you like looking into typical VR inputs that you like for like web controllers, Oculus Touch?
Yeah, so when we started Valkyrie, like the reason we went to the controller was to solve about muscle memory. You know, it was just like we knew that the mouse and keyboard thing wasn't working, having people scrambling around taking the game to so many shows like this and like E3s and that kind of stuff. It's about putting something in someone's hands that they're comfortable with and they can get their their head around it without actually having to visualize it, which is absolutely some muscle memory to use that. And that's why the game was always built around those aspects. And as we've come closer to the release of Valkyrie, we've really sort of focused on making sure that we just get that and get it right. There's a lot of technology that's been building up around the VR industry, like giant machines, treadmills for walking around, and like the touch controllers are a fairly new addition to most of the VR company stuff. So I think the plan is to look into those things at some point, but we don't want to deviate too far off the main track right now. It's like, get Valkyrie finished, get it polished, get it the best it can be, and then down the line, as we continue to support it, as we will, once the game is released, and start looking into things like that. And I was talking to someone today about it, like we have begun to sort of revise pieces of UI and menu and stuff to incorporate more of that thing, because we really wanted to feel like a VR fantasy, an AR fantasy, and all this kind of stuff. So we started looking at expanding some of these things to where touch controls and other bits like pieces like that could be used in the future.
I have a related question off of interface. So a lot of the non-youth players that I've been talking to about Valkyrie ever since I experienced it last year at here in Vegas. A lot of the non-youth players that I've been talking to, the interest level is very high, and the question that keeps getting asked with all of these people that I talk to is joysticks, because every flight sim jockey loves joysticks, and if the controller is great, and that should stay, but me personally, I would prefer the joystick when I'm putting that headset on and playing that game. I'm much better with that than I am with a controller when it comes to flight sims. Definitely, as you said, the keyboard and mouse ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
But that's some kind of joystick support, maybe a specialized controller or something. Razer could probably jump on that if you sweet talk them very nicely.
So the HOTAS, like the kind of joystick systems, is not something we've come out and said we officially support, but we do have them in the office hooked up to Valkyrie, and there are people looking into them. Of course, we like to play games that way, and as we were talking about before, like this is bringing the control pad to shows like this is all about just speed and muscle memory and like making it the most accessible game possible. Like we have people who don't even really play games; they just like to try VR and experience it as a new medium and fly around a little bit. But
the more mediums you have for interfacing with the game, the wider your audience is going to be, and the more people are going to be interested in it. If you have the option of the controller, if you have the option of the joystick, that's going to bring people in that wouldn't have it any other way but that.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like needs to be capitalized on. It's important to me because I'm very excited about this game, and I really want it to happen, and I really want to play it.
There's a knock-on effect as well to making your game playable for the controllers, particularly with VR, because one of the things that can cause discomfort very subtly is the difference between the perceived reality and your actual reality. pilot is sitting there with the controls like this, and you are actually sitting there with your controls like that. So so once you go and HOTAS, not only do you have the requirement of programs to make that work, you've got the UI requirements to sort of, change that input. You've got artists who need to make a new model that does that. You need animators to animate that so that you don't create discomfort just because,
And then you've got the discrepancy between what you're seeing when you look down and see yourself, quote unquote, but knowing that I have my hands out here. It really does take some getting used to when you move your hand and you don't see your hand move in game. It's a little bit disorienting.
No, it absolutely is, and it's very subtle, and you're trying to pull the wool over the eyes of a mind that's been evolving, arguably, for millions of years, so, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that as well, like, it's something that, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, like, all these things, we approached everything for VR with the design philosophy of, like, doing it properly from the start and building it for VR, and that's exactly the other point I was going to make, like, if we move to another system, another shape of body, we're going to have to mimic that inside the virtual world as well.
Also, side point, I just wanted to say the decision with Katie Sackhoff was absolutely brilliant because talking with those non-E players, every Battlestar Galactica junkie I'm playing that game. Oh my God, Starbucks gonna yell at me? Yes.
I have a quick question about, are you guys want to talk about the monetization plan at all? And whether it's going to be free to play, microtransactions, or?
Yeah, it's not something we want to talk about like at this point.
Please,
especially not to us.
do subscriptions.
Like, people who do this.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was just curious if there was anything you guys were willing to share.
Nothing's been said at the minute.
Yeah.
Well, we will be able to, this might be more of a technology thing than a Valkyrie specific, but say I get Valkyrie on day one, if I want to stream that, is there a way for the client to, just take one eye and flatten it and so that I can stream it? Because whenever I see an Oculus Rift being used on the monitor, I'm seeing a split screen with both of them. So is it possible to push, even though, because the screens themselves aren't quite 1080, 16 by 9, so will there be a way to push out a 16 by 9 1080p signal from the client to a Twitch stream?
We Twitch streamed the tournament at what's called FanFest in Reykjavik in February. I guess 10 minutes. That event.
I think it was
another one. But the way that we did that, it might not be necessarily ergonomical or practical.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So it's something that we would love to be able to do, but we haven't sort of said what the solution.
Because that's going to be a cornerstone of this game. It's going to be successful.
Yeah, sure.
The support are more likely probably come from hardware than the software stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's several parties involved with the engine being a big one, basically. They are still working with the new medium that VR is, because they want also people to use their games in the future for streaming being one thing. It's not just for us.
With the PC and the Oculus Rift, there's a third-party program that if your video card puts out more than one output, you can split it. Do one to the Oculus Rift and another to the screen, and you should be able to duplicate it.
Yeah.
I don't know about the PS4.
Yeah, we work for an esports production company, and you definitely do the new firmware for Oculus allows you to do it.
The 7.0 firmware for Oculus.
So,
It does just what you're talking about.
yeah, just native to it.
Cool. There you go.
There's actually hope that soon you'll be able to do live 360 or live VR streaming too.
That would be boring. So that could be like motion.
I think it's sort of similar to that.
Yeah.
If you're like in somebody else's spaceship looking around, they're driving this way and driving.
VR without control is a little strange, but I think these things. I mean, there's so much stuff in esports and streaming and stuff these days. Like I can see it being super.
Another big cause of discomfort is not having control over your own movement. So, like if Andy's flying, Terra Shark's flying, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and he's giving it, giving it laldy. That was the Scottish term. Giving it laldy, yes. It's not going to be very comfortable. That's gonna go down.
So am I pretty much out of luck if I'm thinking that I'm gonna jump in my carrier and eat and load that bay down with a bunch of rates or something?
Yeah, I mean, like it's
They're not
definitely
going
not
to
something we
agree,
discuss at the moment about like, like starting to put the ships back into the other game and stuff. But, we have to design this game the way we need to design this game. We have to make it the way we want to make it without having to compromise or, there is compromise there, but, if it feeds better game design for our game, then we need to sort of focus on that and try and make sure that that's like something we're
It feels like
doing.
Eve could compromise though, right? Because the models of Eve fighters are not as involved. Models of Eve drones are not as involved as the Eve ship.
As I said yesterday, it wasn't until I was doing the presentation the other day that I realized that there is over 30 years of concept art and design of Eve ship in there. So, there's so much aesthetic of Eve that comes through into Valkyrie. There's no way that we're going to do something so crazy that it would never fit in the Eve universe and stuff. Like, we've never wanted to break away from that so much that it felt out of place or like other things. We want to get these things.
But on the other hand, we would not do something that was absolutely right for Valkyrie just because of some, because some 8-year-old sort of Eve thing. So
Yeah, right.
That can't be.
Right. So you're trying to design ships that work well and are identifiable in Valkyrie while you're looking around and release going reality. They need to also look like ships that could exist in the new universe because you're trying to make the game fit the new universe.
Yeah.
So add those two things together and you should get something that you could potentially stick in. Create a stronger connection between Valkyrie and Eve.
Yeah, for sure.
And then that'll be great.
I mean, the basis of the ships is, also come from old Eve fighters things as well. Like, we kind of like cannibalize little pieces of that, and the idea that this, like the Valkyrie teams and the characters and the players that we have in Valkyrie have like sort of bastardized all the parts and pulled all these things. Like it's a more pirate themed game. It's a bit more rebellious themed game and stuff. It's just kind of stuck on, like junkered on and things that put together. Built to be the greatest fighters that they can build. Like they're not just stuck to one race's things. They're saying, okay, like these guys have got the best stuff and these guys have got the best stuff. Let's meld them together and make the best ship that we can make.
So if you could make it look like the parts came from the new Eve fighters, then that would be even more awesome. That would fit even more with you.
I mean, do people want to see them back in Eve? Would it go?
I'd like to pack some of your ships into my carrier.
That would be cool.
Oh my god. I mean, I like you guys, but I don't like you that much.
That's pack your fighters in my carrier.
That I might have worked that long.
This Tabier's had his armor for
Yeah.
No worries. Okay, will you have a free flight or free fly around mode for people that, want to VR and to let someone else give a try to just basically fly around without having to deal with like the multiplayer combat?
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people have asked for, and we haven't said anything yet, but we do listen. And I would leave it at that.
Listening last pretty hard.
Is this an innuendo again?
I think there is space in the game for people who just want to like admire and look around, and there's some interesting design ideas that lead off from that and branch off from that make it more interesting than just physically flying around in space.
Or even the replayable tutorial that goes on, that they can just keep doing that. Like, a friend comes over, hey, I want to see how to check it out, without necessarily having to impact my ranking, for example.
Absolutely. Leave it at that. Yep.
I think I already mentioned this to you, but just to reiterate about the controls, making sure that either you have several options or they're configurable, because right now you've got the left thumbstick set for pitch and yaw, and it should be pitch and roll in my opinion, and the bumpers should be the yaw. And when it comes to flight stick, what you're calling a HOTUS or whatever, same thing, you want the stick to be pitch and roll, and you want some other control to be yaw, like foot pedals, is how they do it in aircraft.
Would be a lot more intuitive that way.
Yes, and it is 10 times more intuitive, because when I was just trying it with the yaw on the stick just now and trying to do the roll and the bumpers, you end up getting the death spiral thing.
Yeah. Now, yeah, we talked about this earlier on. I talked to other people about this over the weekend. I think it's good feedback to take back to the team. And it's always difficult to change a control scheme, especially among a team of developers that have been using one for so long.
Well,
you know, like if you have something for such a long period of time to change.
Not trying to say that, you know, what you're doing is bad or anything, because it's awesome, but that's wrong when it comes to aircraft and fighters and things.
A lot of flight sims is going to agree with me.
I disagree, but because for me, I like the inputs a lot actually, and I think it's super intuitive for me. And I haven't played it that much. So making configurable, maybe like, you know, like typical PlayStation like games where you have 5 different default options. Yeah, you can choose, like look at FIFA or like any other sports game. That would be a nice thing, like probably not too hard to implement.
Yeah, exactly.
And not like too much configurable. I mean, Valkyrie seems to be like different focus than an MMO. Like more casual gamers say, you know, making it easy for people to change inputs. Like
once it goes live, you're going to have the competitive gamers.
You will have them, but like I think it's like it's a bit of a different focus, right?
Yeah,
I guess with the control schemes, I think it sort of would depend whether you approach the game with the perspective of like, this is a space combat game, or another type of player who might approach it saying, this is an FPS with the Z-axis on it, and that would affect it. But it'd be good if just on the fly you can say, I want to remap what the bumpers do to what left and right do, and just flip them around, and then both groups are happy.
This is another thing that people have been very vocal about from early on, you know, because I'm also used to using joysticks for playing games like this, and it is something that, you know, we have listened to, and we do have, you know, plans to solve that, because, you know, people like yourselves, people like people I know who I play with, you know, they feel very strongly about this, and we don't want people to think, oh, I can play that game and hasn't got this X, Y, Z control or whatever. So, yeah, it's, and, you know, the thing about casual and hardcore, taking it seriously, you know, we make a fun game and let people play it however they want. Yes, there will be, you know, casual people playing it. Yes, there will be hardcore people playing it. Same as with, you know, most
A lot of games in general, mostly MMOs, have failed because they alienated the casuals. Casuals make your game. I'm kind of hardcore in Eve, and I plan on being kind of hardcore in Valkyrie, and I want the casuals to play the game, because when the casuals play the game, you guys make more money, and we continue to have a game.
Red news.
I have more fun showing the other easy as well. I have more fun showing the other hardcore than the noobs. I'm not that kind of hardcore.
Yeah, no, I think like accessibility is one of the pillars, one of the tenets of the studio's development stuff. Like we want to open up this game, you know, want as many people playing it as possible, and so having like a flexibility and changing controls and stuff is definitely something we should do. And if a lot of people are talking about it this weekend, and it's not the first time we've heard it, then it's definitely something we should look into and something we should put onto the, you know, like onto the board, and just have some people test it out and then check out, see how we feel about it. Because as I say, it's hard to bring a new control scheme into a studio where the controls have been the same for so long.
Settings, your control scheme, I'm going to say a swear word here among flight simulator guys, but Ace Combat, the Infinity's control scheme that works for a lot of people, and then the control scheme that I want.
That's what I was going to get at, is if you go to the standard pitch and roll on the joystick, everyone's already familiar with that from other games.
Yeah.
So then you get a wider audience.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you want to make it optional. I mean, just think about the inverted state for first-person shooter.
That's
you can have that argument all day long. Yeah. You just make it a click down on Halo, Call of Duty, any of them.
And inverted controls is something that we added after feedback from another show.
Because when Dust went live, there was no way to configure anything on there, and that turned off a lot of my friends.
Yeah. It's something that's not available in this demo, but it's available in the wider game.
Yeah, we've had it on and off demos in the pitching version, but to be honest, the end of when people play the game for this time, they go to the start menu and they spend half of their time thinking, and the start menu,
well, I'm not saying you need it for the demo. I'm just saying when the game goes live, you should definitely have this.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we know. Anyone else got anything else? It's not about controls.
Right in front.
Yeah, I just want to know how to get hold of the game as early as possible, because it's a better phase early, and I'm waiting for keys. So,
yeah, me too.
I have to get to it home, punch all my stuff problems again and again. So I would really love to see a sneak preview.
Yeah, like I said yesterday, we're trying to sort of be very sensible in how we, bring people in. We're doing it in a very controlled way, so that we are learning as much as we can from the people that we have. And we could open the floodgates and say, okay, everyone come in, but if we don't have the things in place to learn what we need to learn, then that was not the right thing to do. So we're just trying to do the right thing to do. And at the minute, that means not opening the floodgates.
So you're busy not adding any people at the moment?
We've been adding some more, yes, we have.
Let me just find a way to skip the queue.
I don't think you need to open the floodgates.
Yeah, just me put me on the queue at the top.
Okay, top of the queue, okay, queue jumpers.
Just remember that if I'm selected by some grace of some god that somebody believes in to participate in the alpha or any of the other stuff, I am immediately going to buy an Oculus. I don't own one now because I answer to somebody else who's tired of me spending money on nerdy stuff. but if I was selected for the alpha, she'd tell me, you know what, go ahead and buy your stupid headset.
We can also send like your wife like a personal letter or like
No, see, Gar already tried that with trying to get her to talk to him to let me buy one of the jackets, and she made him run away scared.
We get like some notarized CCP paper, like
that's a nice jacket, bro.
It really was a nice jacket, but she wouldn't let me have it.
We take Farsight for a while.
So CCP loves progression in their games, but the concern that I have is because Valkyrie seems to be such a skill-based game, flying around, shooting, that if I have twice your hit points, I do twice your damage, and I'm faster than you, that's, in order to kill me, you're going to need a skill level that's insane. In order for me to kill you, it's nothing. So how far are you going with progression there?
So like what do you mean like what's the question in there? Sorry, like just are you saying like are you worried about overpowered ships?
Well, I assume there's going to be some kind of skill system to progress your character. But if I have more hit points than you and I do more damage than you, that lowers the skill ceiling for me.
Yeah. So like when we talked about progression yesterday, we talked about it not being overpowered ships. It's not about like getting the level 2 one, the level 3 one, and then the golden one with the super golden missile that like that wrecks everything and working it through that. It's really about having different ships that blend different play styles. Like as you start to learn to play and you start to naturally play in a different way or veer towards a certain style, like prefer being like slightly tankier or just like you're really into missiles. As we add to one aspect, we take away from the others. So like if you're increasing your tankiness, you're reducing your speed, and like aspects like that. If you're going to have like harder hitting missiles, you're going to have a much weaker Gatling gun. And the ships we showed the other day are kind of like starting to talk like through that kind of stuff. We're blending the things like you really like the heavy ship. I can only use this as an example because it's the only ship we talked about, but you really like the heavy ship and you really like some aspects of the rig, like the missile launcher off the rig. Like eventually you potentially get up to a heavy that has a missile launcher. And that's it's about blending these different things. So as you're progressing through, you're
It's
getting better.
It's not going to be a matter of 5% more shields.
No, absolutely not. And that's really something we're feeling very strongly about. I mean, I hate those kind of games. Like the more I feel like, as a game developer, I don't get to play as much games these days. If I buy into a multiplayer game now, even if I get it day one, I still have to go work during the day. And when I get on, it's already like level 50 guys. People have been in the house all day, absolutely smashing it, and they know all the stuff, and they like progress stuff and things. I'm not keen on that aspect of it. I really like to, learn myself and work these things through myself. So, yeah, we really want to just have everything very well balanced, and that's a big focus of the team right now. We've got all these ships, we've had all these ideas, we've done all these prototypes, we've got all these different types of ships and different types of subclass. We start blending together, and now it's balancing them out so that it's a fair playing field for all. But you can still progress, and you can still change, and you can still have different ships. Right at that.
Have you, Valkyrie, of course, primarily a multiplayer game. Have you given any thoughts to making Valkyrie, big in the esports world with like ranked seasons or tournaments, leagues, things like that?
I've definitely like got more into in like the last couple. I wasn't sure it would be something that I would watch at some point in my life. I wasn't sure it was something, and now it's just an everyday occurrence for me, like watching streams on YouTube and Twitch and watching esports and stuff. And I was talking to some people about it today, and I think that like just making a great multiplayer game makes also a great esports game. Like, and I think like as we focus on making a great balanced, like game with the strong silhouettes, being able to see people, being able to make plays and counter plays and all those things, they all feed into making a strong esport. So that like there is some part of the design that sort of feeds into that, but we're working hard on just making a great multiplayer game at its heart, and the esports stuff should follow on that like, quite naturally.
At FanFest, I mentioned it before, but we did stream the tournament, like the world's first virtual reality tournament, and it was Valkyrie. And, there was thousands of people watching on Twitch, and it wasn't really sort of plugged that much. And like in the room that we were doing it, we had a full sort of, there's 10 stations like there with 5v5. There's a huge screen up there, and the room was packed with people like watching it, getting fully into it. And it was the first time we've done that. It was a bit of an unknown, but to actually have that kind of response, I think, was.
Can we find that recording anywhere?
I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look for like Valkyrie FanFest 2015 tournament, it'll be on there.
One of the things that
some amazing commentary on there.
Yeah, some great commentary. One of the things that really excites me about it, and like as a game, like we don't really have characters per se. Like the person that you sit in is you, and that's something we've always been very like strong with. Like you're playing the game as yourself. You just transpose yourself from outside into it. And it's really the cockpits that are our characters. So with it, like esports and the streaming kind of stuff, we give you hoping to give you opportunity to really customize those and make the cockpits your characters. I think that would be really cool to see it from that perspective inside different people's cockpits and how they kind of kit them out, how different they look and how they feel. It's really badass.
Will there be fluffy guys? Will there be fluffy guys?
You want fluffy guys?
Yeah.
Decorate the cockpit. Yeah, that would be awesome.
This is a really difficult question. So we've talked about like a ton in the office because there's a line you can cross with some of this stuff and you can't come back. I think. In terms of like how ridiculous can you make the cockpit? Like floppy dice and like little pine trees that sit on these things like
maps.
There's one aspect that like
KFC boxes on the floor.
this cans. Yeah, like quake cans. Like these are all things that we could go down that route or we could not go down that route, and there's some decisions to be made on that. Things we're looking into with that kind of stuff because it is a difficult decision to make.
You've got to be kind of cohesive with the universe whilst also considering what people want. So, I don't know, as an Eve, are there any fluffy dice or anything like that?
There's lots of cutesy stuff in the Fedos, all the little gimmicky items that
S-bombs.
Christmas time, things like that. I mean, it's not something that you're sort of conscious of when you undock your spaceship and get to a fight. It's all very grim, dark, serious business.
Yeah.
But like, you get little trinkets and tokens and things like that. That's sort of like the lighthearted elements of the game. I don't know again, but I don't know about pine trees and bobbleheads and things like that.
I've actually been digging into the kind of the lore side of this stuff recently to see what's available there for us. It is a decision to make. It is something we need to look at, and it is something we have been looking at like quite seriously. Like people have that like in the back middle.
Hi there. So this is nothing related to anything that I asked, but essentially Valkyrie and Eve itself are two different games, and you guys are going not, as you said earlier, not in sporadic different directions. But I just had a question as in for the actual emergence of the game and the creation of the game, was it CCP themselves, or was the game itself brought as an idea towards the team?
Do you mean like how was the game created? Like how did CCP and Valkyrie become a thing?
Yes.
Okay, well you were one of the original guys, so
we were lucky enough to get
story.
told many times, maybe every 10 minutes. We were lucky enough to get a very early Oculus Rift in the office. Like a couple of us kickstarted it, and we got one. Say like a very early one come in.
Just to interject this is when Andy was in Reykjavik working on EVE Online, so everyone was working on EVE Online.
Sorry, yeah, I was still working on EVE, like in Iceland, and a couple of us got together and we just decided we wanted to see VR games. Like we were excited about VR games, and we were worried that if no games came out for VR wouldn't do okay, and like that kind of thing. No one's going to buy VR without the games, or no one's going to make games without VR being popular. So we just started making some stuff and putting some EVE assets into the game, testing things out, and then it progressed really quickly into what was the EVR demo that we showed at FanFest 2013, which was just, we ended up rebuilding some of the EVE ships like in first person and putting them together in about 6 weeks or so. We made EVR, and we didn't tell anyone about it, and we managed to keep it a secret, and people came to FanFest, and we just surprised them and said, hey, we've got this Oculus Rift like EVE demo, and it exploded from there. It's been an absolutely insane ride for me and the rest of the team and stuff for the last couple of years. Went to E3, did super well at E3, and yeah, it's just been a roller coaster since then. And as I said in the presentation yesterday, I always like to thank the fans, the EVE fans at FanFest and Vegas when I come to these places, because it was your guys' support, that really pushed it onwards, that really made it, people were excited about it, but when they saw how much the fans enjoyed it and how much they put behind it, that we sort of started to turn it into a thing, and it slowly turned into something. So yeah, 2 years ago we moved over to the Newcastle studio and started building it for real.
Yeah, two quick questions. First, saw the FanFest tournament. Are you guys thinking at all in terms of like a spectator mode, or working on any sort of spectator client?
That was asked, I think, just up previously.
It wasn't asked by me, but obviously
okay.
the question.
Alright, okay. So we would like to, it's our intention to create the best multiplayer VR game, and part of that would be to have a spectator mode. And we did have one at for the stream that you can see. If you see, it's got everyone's head tracked live. We put that on Twitch, but that solution might not be perfect for once we ship. So it's something that we want to do absolutely, and we're working with Unreal and amongst ourselves to try and get a solution to that. But we do want one for sure.
We're a good bit of the way there, but it needs some work. For VR, like everything, it's required a little bit of thinking from stuff from the ground up and just approaching it in a slightly different way. If we just hammered in like a solution to it, then it's not going to get where we want to take it. So I think we just need to sit down and take another look at it and make sure we get it right to it properly.
And second thing, real quick, are you guys thinking any sort of ELL or matchmaking system for?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you said excellent. You're the one who wants all the noobs to kill. Excellent.
It makes it better for the casuals. And like I said, more casuals means a better game.
On your Smurf account.
Just to kill this, can we have like a set to elite only button there, and I'll just push that?